How's it going, guys? I should probably start my PowerPoint, shouldn't I? Or keynote. It's a distinction. So my name's Kirby. I'm a developer evangelist at Pebble. And today we're going to be talking about how to Pebble, more specifically how to develop for the Pebble. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the history of Pebble, because not everyone knows it. It's kind of interesting. So Pebble was founded on Kickstarter, which is pretty slick. Back 2 years ago, we were the biggest Kickstarter ever. We raised over $10 million, over 60,000 backers, and it kind of launched the company to where it is today. Now we have over 150 employees. Unfortunately, about a year ago, a water cooler passed us in funding. But, yeah, right. But fortunately, some of you might know. Oh, I did start the recording. Fortunately, some of you might know, we recently launched a new product that we launched on Kickstarter called the Pebble Time. And the Pebble Time raised over $20 million. So we're back above the water cooler. And everything is happy at Pebble. So that's kind of like the brief history of where everything came from. Let's talk about the original Pebble and kind of what all it does and all that jazz. So here's the original Pebble. It has an e-paper display, which allows it to have a battery that lasts for over 7 days. It connects to both iPhone and Android devices. We have an app store with over tens of thousands of apps, and we have over 6,000 developers, or no, over 20,000 developers as of earlier this year. In January of last year, we released a new product called the Pebble Steel. So some of you guys might have a Pebble Steel. Basically, it's the exact same watch, but with a steel housing wrapped around it. And of course, can't forget about the new lovely Pebble Time and Pebble Time Steel. Raise your hand if you backed the Pebble Time on Kickstarter. Oh, only 2 people. You guys are awesome. You guys get pajama pants no matter what. So both these watches you can get on our website today for $99 and $199 respectively. As soon as we start selling the Pebble Times to everyone, these prices will go down and everything will be happy. So today, the Pebble Classic that normally retails for $99 on getpebble.com, you can buy from us today for $50, which is pretty slick. So if you want to get that deal, then come to our booth after this talk. But let's actually talk about some development. So let's talk about what we're going to build today. So today we're going to build a weather app. And a weather app is kind of all-encompassing Pebble app. So on the Pebble, you write the interface for the Pebble in C. If you want to talk to the internet or talk to an API or do stuff like that, you write stuff in JavaScript that will then run on the phone. And then you talk between the two via Bluetooth using something called app message. So before we get into the actual live coding demo, I want to talk a little bit about something that's really important, which is developer documentation. So when I made this talk, I had no idea what I was doing. So I went to developer.getpebble.com to figure out what to do. So I suggest you do the same. But now we can go ahead and do the exciting part. Awesome. Let's go to Chrome, and we'll go to cloudpebble.net. So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a new project. We're going to name our project Weather. We're going to use the C SDK. We do have, if you don't know C or don't want to learn C, you can use something called simply.js or pebble.js, which lets you write the Pebble interface completely in JavaScript. For today's demo, you're definitely going to want to use the C SDK because we'll be talking a lot about C. And it really isn't that as bad as you think. Also, I'm going to go ahead and mention this. I apologize. In the last 2 days, I've come down with a little bit of a cold, so I apologize. We're also going to use SDK3, which supports the Pebble Time and color. Yes, we have a question in the back.
So I was kind of curious. Is there any particular SDK that you would recommend?
Yeah, so basically, SDK is the one that the team is working on the most right now. SDK 2, which is the most recent version, is 2.9, which is the one that works on the black and white watches, is not being really maintained right now. 3.0 is backwards compatible with the black and white watches, so you should just use the 3.0 SDK and go from there. Also, moving forward, let's just leave questions to the end because that makes things really, really nice and clean. So we'll create an empty project. So let's go ahead and create a C file called weather.c. And I'm going to make my font just a little bit smaller so I can click create. And we'll go in here, and with all C programs, the first thing you have to have is a main method, right? Some entry point into your application. So let's say int main. Main isn't going to take any arguments, so we're just going to say void. And since we are returning an integer, we're going to go ahead and return 0, which means success. So basically, this is the function that's called when someone clicks select on their Pebble. They are going to see a list of, this is actually super classified, but this is the Pebble time. And they would click select on the music app, for example, and then the music app would launch. So this main method is called. So when that happens, we want to go ahead and init, or create all our stuff, and get ready and go. So we'll create a method called init. Conversely, when someone clicks back on their Pebble from an app, it's going to go back to the list of all the apps, and the app will be destroyed. So we need to do some cleanup. We need to deallocate all the memory we've allocated, etc. So let's create a dinit function. And then also, when the app isn't running or doing anything important, we need to hand over ourselves to the Pebble OS operating system. So we'll say app event loop. Cool. Let's go ahead and create these methods real quick. If I'm in your way, standing, let me know. I can shrink down a little bit maybe. Oh, cool thing about Cloud Pebble, excuse me. If you're a Vimmer or an Emaxer, go to settings and you can enable Vim or Emacs key bindings. I see some of you typing really, really quickly, so that will be very helpful. But there's the code that you guys care about. So there are two kinds of really important layers of abstraction for the Pebble. One is called a window, and we're going to go ahead and create one of those. Static window pointer. We'll just call it window. And then we'll go ahead and allocate some memory for it. The methods for the Pebble SDK are actually really, the APIs are really, really intuitive. It's like window underscore create. It's going to allocate all the memory and give us that window object, or that window struct, really. And conversely, when we are going to clean up and free all that memory, we'll say window underscore destroy and pass in that window object. So let's talk about these layers of abstraction real quick. So the Pebble is really just a bunch of windows on top of each other. It's a stack. So we're going to push a window on the stack. So for example, my watch face, this is telling the time right now, right? That is a window. It is the only window on my Pebble right now. When I click into the menu of all my applications, we're going to push another window on the stack. That is the menu list. And then when someone clicks into an application, we're going to push another window onto the stack. And that's basically what's visible. Whatever's on the top of the stack is what is visible to the user. And conversely, when you click back, it's going to pop that window off the stack and then show the thing that's beneath it. So now that we have this window created, let's go ahead and push it onto the stack. And I'm going to use my cheat sheet over here to figure out how to do that, because I forget. It's really simple. Window stack push. And we're going to pass in our window object. And then we're going to say true. And true is referring to whether we want that pushing to be animated or not. So true is referring to the fact that we want that we want there to be an animation when that push occurs. We can make that a little bit more clear by saying bool is animated true. And this is just kind of common code courtesy, so that someone else can read this later. And we'll see what this looks like. So if you don't have a Pebble, which is totally OK, Cloud Pebble actually has a full-blown Pebble emulator that emulates the Pebble hardware and runs a full version of the Pebble operating system. So right now when I click compile, build failed. It compiles the code, and it will tell you if it fails or not. And I messed up in the fact that on line 5, 11, and 9, and 13, I probably forgot a semicolon. Anyone see what I messed up? Let's go back to the logs real quick. Say it again? This is straight C right now. Well, I mean, really?
Yeah, there is no bool.
Is that line 5? Nope, I forgot to, there is a bool. We forgot to say what kind of return type this is. That's what we forgot. Void. I'm pretty sure we have bool. Let me check my cheat sheet real quick to see if we have bool. We have bool. So it's compiling the code right now. It's packaging into a little bundle called a PBW. And then it's going to go ahead and boot the emulator, which emulates the Pebble hardware, runs a full version of Pebble OS, and it's going to install the app. It installs successfully, and you can see we have an empty window. Super exciting. Yeah, right? Thank you, Dylan. Let's go ahead and actually put some text on the screen. So we're going to create a text layer. So I said earlier that there are two layers, or there's two different types of extraction that are really important. One is called a window. The other is called a layer. So window is the main level of abstraction. What sits on top of windows are layers, just kind of like Photoshop layers, right? So layers will sit inside of windows. So let's go ahead and in here we're going to use a method called window_set window handlers, plural, and we're going to pass in a struct to some window handlers. Check my code. Handlers. This struct has two fields, load and unload, which are going to take functions, function pointers. So we're going to say window load and unload. I'm sorry, guys. I'll let you guys catch up for a second. So when the window loads, after the window is finished loading, what's going to happen? Well, a window load is going to get called. Make sure you get this method signature right, because if we don't, we're going to compile error, because this struct is expecting a certain signature. So it doesn't really make, it doesn't make a crazy amount of sense that we have a global window object and then that we're passing it in. But you might not always have a global window object. So that's why this method is going to have this window parameter. So in here, we can go ahead and do some stuff with the window. Actually, before we do that, no, let's do some stuff with the window. Specifically, we'll do some stuff with the text layer and pushing it onto the window. Let's do text layer equals text layer underscore create. Makes sense, right? And then in our window unload that we'll create real quick, we're going to go ahead and do text layer destroy. Any method that has the word create in it is going to be mallocing memory for us inside the SDK. So you'll need to deallocate that memory or free that memory using a destroy method. It's kind of a food for thought. And actually, this create method is going to take parameters that refer to this window's size and origin or location. So every layer in Pebble inside of a window is going to have some x and y coordinates referring to where it exists in that window. And it also is going to have a height and a width referring to how big that layer is going to be. Oh, I'm really sorry about that. So the Pebble is 144 by 168 pixels. So we'll take a grect. And actually, what we can do is we can create a, what can we create? We can create a layer pointer that says root layer. And we can say window underscore get root layer and pass in our window object. And this will give us the root layer. So by default, an empty window is going to have a layer already. We can go ahead and pull out that root layer by calling window get root layer and passing in a window object. And then we can use that layer's dimensions to, we can use that layer's dimensions for our other layers. You'll see what I mean. It makes sense. And also we need the root layer so that we can attach other layers to that layer. So we'll use this later too. But we'll go ahead and say grect, which is a rectangle, bounds is equal to the bounds of this root layer, which is layer get bounds. Just say it right over here. Yeah. How's that? I'll just like walk around whenever I type for a little bit. So this grect, a grect is a struct that has origin and size, x and y, height and width. So we have this root layer. We're basically getting its rectangle, the rectangle that represents that root layer. So let's go ahead and cast this grect. And in the struct, we'll say dot size is equal to, actually, I can make this really big for you guys. I never asked. Can everyone actually read this from the back? Yeah, go ahead and if someone has the technology to do so. That kind of works. Is that cool with everyone over there? You guys work in the dark all the time, right? Either some basement in the dark or like at Starbucks, one or the other. So this, my gosh. I don't think the camera is going to like that very much. So bounds dot w or size dot w, and then we're going to say 20. So we have our width. We're going to fill up the entire width of our window. The emulator's not there, so I can't show it. But the entire width of our window, and then we're going to say 20 pixels high. And I just closed that. And then we're going to say dot origin. And we're going to say, what do we want this to be? We're going to want this to be all the way over to the far left. So we're going to say 0. And then we want it to be down some amount. So I've already done the math ahead of time. So that's 72. So now we have this text layer. Let's go ahead and do text layer. Let's put some text in here. Text layer set text. I'm going to go down just a little bit for you. I'm so sorry. Hello world. Classic example, right? Text layer set text. Do we want to do anything else? Let's go ahead and set the alignment. Text layer set text alignment. Text layer. And it's going to be a G text alignment center. Now that we do all that, what we can do is add that layer to our window. And we're going to say layer, add child. And we'll take our root layer, and we're going to go ahead and add this text layer to that root layer. So you always have to add layers to layers. A text layer is more specific than just a general layer. So you have to say text layer, get layer. We're going to get the layer out of the text layer. And pass in our text layer. Does that make sense? It's kind of like object-oriented, but in C. Inheritance. Text layer, get layer, text layer. And if we save this and run it, we get a build failed. And we're going to check the build log. I mean, this is like real life. Line 17, too few arguments to the text layer, destroy. Huh. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense. Who would let me write that? Text layer. Boom. If I do anything that looks really stupid, you should like yell something out. So while this compiles, raise your hand if you already own a Pebble. Hi, like show everyone that you're excited about it. Thank you. Raise your hand if you've already made a Pebble app before. Good, that explains why you're here. All the people who really love Pebble and have Pebbles and like have built Pebble apps are in the Twilio talk probably. So I'm gonna be real with you guys. This happens sometimes where the app just doesn't install. And I'm going to show you, and this is good because I'm going to show you how to fix it. When this happens, you click escape, which will get rid of the thing. This eventually will say timed out. What you do is you shut down the emulator. Yep, so you saw it timed out. The emulator will go away, and you click the play button again. And this will recompile the code and boot the emulator again. So how the emulator works is we actually have a server farm of QEMU instances running Pebble OS. And if we have a whole bunch of people building to the emulator all at one time, that server farm gets a little bogged down. But we have a lot in our server farm. We have lots of animals at the farm, and everything's good, which is awesome. Hello world, cool. So that's pretty slick. But it'd be cooler if this thing talks to the internet. So let's go ahead and do that. And how we're going to do that is we're going to create a JavaScript file that talks to the internet. So to talk to the internet, click JavaScript. You guys see that? I probably did that a little fast. You go down to resources, make it a little smaller. Resources, click add. Nope, not resources. I'm stupid. OK, 0. What? Minus. Yeah, right. Where am I at? We're going to click a new file. And we'll click JavaScript. App.js. We have a question? What's up? Pause for 1 minute. OK. Yeah. I'm not streaming, but we're recording, so you guys can watch this. And this is all on GitHub. Yeah, what's up, Dylan? I will post this on my personal. Actually, this actually is already on GitHub. I'm going to open up my GitHub, so the code's going to go away. But it's GitHub, Kirby K. And the repo is called Pebble Money Demo. So this is actually slightly different, but it's pretty much the same thing. When the Kickstarter was still going live, instead of doing a weather demo, I did a Pebble app that showed how much money we had on Kickstarter. But if you go to github.com/KirbyK/money or Pebble Money Demo. That's where you can get all the source codes. That Dylan. I wish I had Kirby. Oh, that was bad. That was bad. OK, cool. So let's talk about JavaScript. So we're going to add a new file, a JavaScript file. We're going to call it app.js. And we need to know when these JavaScripts are actually loaded and ready to go. So we're going to have a ready event listener. So we're going to say pebble.add event listener ready. And then we're going to say a function. No, actually, I'm just going to do this. Raise your hand if you want me to go faster. No. There was a comma there. Raise your hand if you want me to go faster, but I can explain concepts, and you guys can look at the source code later. I can use auto completion, and then we can just like blaze through it. And I can show you like abstract concepts, or do you guys just want me to go slow? And you guys just write the code as I write it. You want concepts? Do you all want concepts? OK. So this ready event listener is basically just like document.ready in web development land, Basically, whenever the JavaScript's ready to go, whenever the Pebble app is ready to go, the Pebble app will then send a message over Bluetooth to the phone saying, hey, I'm ready. And then this callback will get called. And then from there, we can go ahead and get the weather. So we'll write a function called getWeather. That function is not going to take any arguments, and it's not going to return anything. It's going to do everything on its own. One thing it is going to do, though, is talk to the internet. We're going to create a request object, which is an XML HTTP request. So this request object, open, it's going to make a GET request to an API that I already have. So the API is api.openWeatherMap. And you can see what this JSON looks like. You pass in basically to this API. You pass in your latitude and longitude. Ooh, too much. And it returns back the weather. So these latitude and longitudes are to Indiana, where I'm from. And you can see that the temperature in Kelvin, because it's in Kelvin, is 286 degrees Kelvin, which, hold on, math, 286 minus 273. So that's 14 degrees Celsius, which times 1.8 plus 32. Oh, that's not that bad. It's 57 degrees in Indiana. When I left a couple days ago, it was 30 degrees. It was kind of horrible. So in this JavaScript, or this JSON object, we're going to want to go ahead and go into main, and we're going to get into temperature. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this URL. Bam. We're going to say true, meaning we want this to be an asynchronous call. And we're going to say request.onload will get called when we get a response back from that request. So we're going to say send weather. And it'll say request.send. And we're not going to send anything with the request. We're just making a request to the API, and it's going to respond back with that JSON object. So let's say var, let me put my semicolon here. Var send weather. And this response, that big JSON string, is going to live in something called this.response text. And it's literally just a string, straight up string. We don't want that. We want something that we can drill into and talk to those different fields within that JSON object. So how we do that is JavaScript has this great class called JSON. It has this great function called parse. And then we can say json.parse. And this is going to return a JavaScript object that we can then do like dot syntax on. I can literally say weather dot coordinate dot lawn and get negative 122.7.42. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say weather dot main dot temp, and we're going to save that in. I'm going to cough. Temp. Let's go ahead and make a method that makes this not in Kelvin. K to F. This is going to be K. And we're going to return K minus 273 point, what is it, 15. We're going to multiply all that times 1.8. And then we're going to add, add 32. And that's going to return to us a floating point number. Fun fact, the Pebble does not like floats, does not like floating point numbers. And by that I mean the processor in the Pebble cannot do floating point math. There are not instructions for doing floating point math. So if you do use floating point math, what we do is we include a whole bunch of libraries that make your Pebble app bigger that then make floating point math happen in integer with an integer system. So we're going to go ahead and make this a fixed number by wrapping it all in parentheses and saying dot to fixed with a 1 parameter. Cool. So now we can say K to F. Bam. And now if we console.log this out, this will go into our Pebble logs when we run our app. Say the temp is temp. And I think that should actually work. So let's click play, see what happens. Who just came here for the Pebble pajama pants? Raise your hand. Oh, that's not as bad as I thought either. Do you guys just not know how to raise your hands? Or so for those of you who came here just to learn about Pebble, we do have a whole bunch of Pebble pajama pants. Unfortunately, there are definitely more people here than we have pants. We have about 20 pants. But fortunately, our friends in the next room, Twilio, I use Twilio. I'm going to restart this thing because it doesn't always like us. Our friends at Twilio, I very quickly made a Twilio app that's going to let you guys all text me, and then it will automatically select a random 20 of you and text you back saying you've won. And if you just come up here, show me your phone saying you're a winner, I'll give you Pebble pajama pants. Because Twilio is awesome. We have a hand. Yeah. Yeah, if you just go to openweathermap.org, you'll find everything. So if we look at our logs, we'll see type error, can't read property of open, undefined. On line 13 in Pebble.js. 13 and 21. Or actually, really just 13. 13, request.open. That looks pretty good to me. Do you guys see what's wrong with this? That's definitely a string. Yeah, you're the man. Thank you. We have to create this XML HTTP request. Let me make sure I'm actually making the XML HTTP request before we compile again. I am, it looks like. Yeah, it said undefined. That makes sense. The object didn't exist. It was undefined, which is why the open method did not exist on undefined. You have a question? I heard an So the girl who makes Cloud Pebble, she's very, very, very intelligent. Her name's Catherine. She dropped out of MIT to come work for Pebble and do Cloud Pebble for us. You guys shouldn't drop out. I tell her that this bug exists, that where we have to shut down Cloud Pebble, like shut down the emulator and reinstall, and she swears that it never happens to her. But it feels like it happens to me a lot. For those of you who do not want to use Cloud Pebble, it's like you like using your own IDE, if you like using Vim or Emacs or whatever, if you go to developer.getpebble.com and go to Get the SDK, we have our own SDK that you can install on your computer. So like, if I go to iTerm, make it really big, we have a command called Pebble, and you can do stuff with it. So if you don't like using Cloud Pebble for whatever reason, you can do that. And actually, I'll show you real quick. It's really, really slick. New project, hi, cd into hi, Pebble build. This is really slick. Actually, I did this, which is kind of why I'm excited about it. Pebble install -- emulator. Basalt means the Pebble time. We actually have the emulator for the everyone's computer as well. So you can see hi, which as soon as it installs the app, you'll see it install the app in a second. Loading hi. The default app is a thing that will show you what button you click. So if I click left, it says, or right rather, it says select, up, down. I can go back to the menu, which in this case is just showing this. But yeah, pretty cool. Here's the timeline. There's no pins on the timeline. Oh, there's Paul Bart mockup too. That was for a workshop I did a couple days ago. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this ready. Twilio, awesome. So if we look at our logs, we'll actually now see that temperature, which is 56.5 degrees. which is awesome. So really quickly, let's go ahead and see how we can send this temperature to the Pebble, display it on the user's watch, and then I'll get you guys some Pebble pants. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, aren't you? So there are a couple different ways to send messages between the Pebble and a phone. 3 specifically, actually. There's one that lets you send messages both ways. That's called app message. There's one that lets you send messages just from the phone. That's called app sync, which is what we'll use today. And then there's one called data logging, which lets you log data. Like, for example, if like someone's taking steps and you're looking at accelerometer data, you can have it send data on a very, very slow basis to aggregate like step data. So let's go ahead and create an app sync method or object. And when we create this app sync object, we're going to need a buffer to store the information that is sent across the Bluetooth. So let's go ahead and create a uint 8 underscore t, always be really specific, buffer, which we'll just call sync buffer. And we'll arbitrarily say 64 bytes because we're only sending an integer over, which is 4 bytes on a 32-bit machine. So that should be plenty of space. We're going to go ahead and create an enum to use for our key value store. So when you send information from the Pebble, on the JavaScript side, what you send is a JSON object. So I say like temp, the temperature. I could say like some other value, key value. So key value, key value, key value. I just send JSON. And then what happens on the C side is you have to have an enum that references those key values so it can pick out what keys and values you're sending. So let's go ahead and create an enum called weather keys. And we will say weather temp key. And we're just going to say that its value is 0. I don't need that semicolon. I do need one there, though. So this way, when we in here, instead of logging this out, we'll still log it out. But we'll say pebble.send app message. Where's my C code? Just to make sure. Yep, Pebble send app message. We'll give our little JSON syntax. We'll say temp. And then we'll say :temp. That wasn't me. So now we have a temp here. We have our enum here. This enum really just is the value 0. So we need to tell it that the value 0 means that temp string. We can do that by going into settings and scrolling down to see all of our key values. So here are all here are PebbleKit.js message keys. We'll say temp, which has a value of 0. And we'll say save. So now if we go back to CLand, what we have to do is when we loaded that window, when we created that window, we set another window handler. So here's that. Here's that. Everyone text that number. This number right here. Anything you want. You can literally say anything. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes. Like I said, this demo, all the source code is online. You can either look at github.com/pebbleexamples, look at the weather app, or you can look at my Kickstarter example on my GitHub. OK, who hasn't texted the number? Raise your hand. OK. OK, if you have not texted the number. So everyone texted the number? It says what? No network. That's unfortunate. You have no service. That's also very unfortunate. What do you guys have? I have Verizon, and I have 2 bars. OK. So I'm going to run the Twilio node server, and it's going to randomly select 20 of you. Right now. OK, I'll leave it back up there again. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. OK. So in here, we'll say node app.js. Who got a text message? Bam. Thank you guys very much. Got a few last things I want to say before you come up here and get your Pebble pants. We are hiring like crazy at Pebble. So if you want to check out our developer listings or our job listings, go to getpebble.com/jobs. Thank you very, very much. Come get Pebble pants. Come get Pebble pants. Come get these.